everyone, here's today's daily dose. Reading comprehension made easy with the help of context clues. Now, most of us struggle with new and unfamiliar words in various questions, especially in reading comprehension. Like it sometimes, stops us from either understanding the overall theme of the passage, or, it completely freezes us in terms of not, letting us move forward. Now, this no longer has to be the case. For this video, I've chosen an article from the Finance and Commodities section, Economic Times, where we will learn the meaning of new and unfamiliar words without having to go through the trouble of, opening a dictionary and searching for the meanings of those words. Now remember, not all questions require you to know the exact meaning of a given word, right? It's good enough if you can make out the overall meaning a word brings to the context, so you're able to follow what you read and comprehend or understand, the central idea of the passage. Now the context will always provide us clues. So apart from this, a little bit of knowledge on the meanings of prefixes and suffixes and phrasal verbs will also come in handy. Now let's get to our passage. Passage that we have today from the Economic Times Finance and Commodities section is Best Rupee Rally Sees RBI Boost Reserves War Chest. Now remember, a headline is not necessarily a grammatically correct sentence, right? In fact, it's just the opposite. The objective, of a headline is to capture the reader's attention, so only highlighting or keywords are present. Now, so if you look at the title, right, or headline, Best Rupee Rally Sees RBI Boost Reserves War Chest. So we understand, we're familiar with a political rally maybe, but here, in our context, it's a rupee rally, right? A rally, I'm assuming you all know, which is nothing but, a gathering or coming together, especially, to inspire enthusiasm for a specific cause, right? And then it says RBI Boost Reserves War Chest. Now, war chest as such, are reserves of money, kind of specifically kept for war. But in our context, it's probably referring to a sum of money, used to conduct a campaign. And in our context, it's the rally, right? And let's get down to the passage. New York. The rupee's sharpest rally in almost a year is giving the central bank scope to take out an insurance policy for what could be a tumultuous 2017. So obviously in the first sentence, right, as soon as you read it, I'm sure the word that is sticking out to you, right, the new and unfamiliar word is tumultuous. So we need to figure out what this word can mean. Now if you look at the word tumultuous, you know immediately it's an adjective. How do you know that? Because of the suffix UOUS, right? UOUS or OUS, the suffix means full of something, right? So full of tumult. That's what we see here. So tumult again, it's definitely a negative word if you ask me, right? Let's see if the context is helping us. The rupee's sharpest rally in almost a year is giving the central bank scope, which is an opportunity to take out an insurance policy for what could be. So the reason why, right, central bank is given an opportunity to take out this insurance policy for what could be a tumultuous 2017. So we don't know how 2017 is going to look like, and given the scenario that we have, right, it's definitely full of some sort of a uproar, right? It's already put us in a lot of instability, right? So a lot of commotion or disturbance happening with respect to what's happening in the market, in the industry, in the economy, right? So what we've done here basically is identified that, with the help of the suffix OUS, we understand that it's full of some sort of a uproar or some sort of a disturbance, or some sort of negative effect, and that's why central bank is given the opportunity to take out an insurance policy so that we are kind of safe. Let's move on. A resumption of stock and bond inflows and a budget viewed as fiscally prudent and pro-growth spurred a 1.9% gain against the dollar in the last 3 weeks, the best performance in Asia. So if you look at the next sentence, our next context, right? Let's identify first if the context is giving us a positive or a negative meaning, right? That's going to help us with identifying the meaning of new and unfamiliar words. Now, if you look at the new and unfamiliar words, I'm sure resumption is one, right? And then we have prudent, and then we have spurred, right? I don't think there's any other words that you may not be familiar with. So let's address this. So we've identified our new and unfamiliar words. Let's look at the context and see whether it's giving us a positive or a negative meaning. Now, some clue words in the context. For example, 1.9% gain, right? The best performance in Asia. So obviously, the context is giving us a positive meaning because we've narrowed down on these words. Now let's look at our words closely, right? Resumption. Resumption, if you look at the prefix RE, which means again, right? So a resumption of stock and bond inflows, which means probably, something that is happening again, right? A beginning of something, right? A beginning of something, a beginning again or resuming again. That's probably what you can quickly relate resumption to, right? A resumption of stock and bond inflows. Okay, so this we've covered out saying it's a beginning again, right? We move on to our next word, prudent. But we have an adverb before that, right? Intensifying, prudent, fiscally prudent. So obviously, those of you who are preparing bank exams must be familiar with this word fiscal, right? Which relates to finance, government expenditures, revenues and debt. So fiscally prudent, and then you have and pro-growth. So pay attention to this and, which is a hint word. It's a synonym hint word, right? And then you have pro-growth. Pro, the prefix pro means what? You're pro something means you're supporting that, right? You're favoring that, affirmative. So supporting growth, favoring growth. So obviously prudent again has to be a positive word. Remember, you don't have to literally know the exact meaning of prudent. But for your knowledge, prudent is nothing but, exercising good judgment or common sense, right? Basically, you're careful in handling practical matters. And here we're referring to matters related to finance, fiscally prudent and pro-growth. Spurred, that's our next word. Spurred a 1.9% gain. So given the context, and since we already narrowed in or zeroed in on our clue words, gain and best performance, spurred obviously has to mean something on the lines of, either stimulated it or incited a 1.9% gain, right? Something that pushed. So do you see here what we've done is we've looked at the context, figured out what the overall meaning the context gives us, right? And we looked at gain and best performance as our clue words, said it's giving us a positive meaning. We went back and closely looked at our new and unfamiliar words, and we have an idea. Let's move on. The Reserve Bank of India is responding by buying dollars to bolster its foreign exchange reserves. Bolster is probably another new and unfamiliar word. It added $1.6 billion to its stockpile in the week through February 3rd, the most since early September. So again, let's look at our context. Is it giving us a positive or a negative meaning? So the context here, the Reserve Bank of India is responding by buying dollars, right? Responding. So these words again are telling us that it's a positive meaning. So bolster here, and then the following context also says added $1.6 billion to its stockpile. So which means something positive happening here. So bolster can mean anything from, either it's supporting, right, or it's strengthening, right? So the Reserve Bank of India is responding by buying dollars to support or to strengthen its foreign exchange reserves, to make sure it's robust, right? So it added 1.6 billion to its stockpile in the week through February 3rd, the most since early September. Let's move on. Let's read our last paragraph. One of the world's fastest growth rates, slowing inflation in a domestic market of 1.3 billion people, has made India an attractive hedge against a possible rise in trade protectionism after President Donald Trump's election win. So our next word is hedge. Let's read on. Still, the Asian nation wouldn't be immune to an external shock that causes investors to sour on developing nation assets. These rupee levels provide a great opportunity to buy dollars and build reserves just in case depreciating rupee pressures return, said Veeraj Patel, foreign exchange strategist at ING Group. So let's look at our word hedge. one of the world's fastest growth rates, slowing inflation, and a domestic market of 1.3 billion people has made India an attractive hedge against a possible rise. So, which means India is almost like a protective barrier, right? Your clue word again is against. So, against this possible rise in trade protectionism, right, after President Donald Trump's election win, India is becoming or is an attractive hedge against that, right? So hedge here probably refers to a barrier or some sort of an, protective fence, right, against being your clue word. So against this possible rise in trade protectionism, India is posing as an attractive barrier or a protective fence. So do you follow this, right? So how many words was that? Hedge. Let's go back. Bolster, spurred, prudent, resumption, and tumultuous. So that's about 6 words. That's all we have for this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'll be back with yet another tip soon. Until then, stay focused.